In general, you did join the Army. You are here under the auspices of helping out the Fourth Reich, in essence?
That's correct, yep.
Okay, and...
That's the honest answer.
And they allowed you to come, so they want to get a message out in some way.
That's correct.
What would that message be?
Well, I have to be careful as to what I say exactly.
Sure.
And I don't have handlers per se. We work together. It's my decision whether I speak or not now. And if I do, I have to accept the consequences. So I'm prepared to answer your questions. But there's other factions, because like as we mentioned, there's been the two factions warring against each other. You know, there's been the whole Zionist faction warring against the Fourth Reich. And I mean, before I came here, I had a visit from the FBI, which would be more, probably it was people connected to General Petraeus and other people, and they were asking the FBI. I was at a residence in Grand Rapids in Michigan, and two FBI agents turned up at the door, and they were basically asking me to tone it down a little bit because I need to do certain things with the government next year. And like I say, I've just come out of the Army. I was in the Army for a year.
But, I mean, okay, so Petraeus is obviously, what you're trying to tell us is he's working with the Fourth Reich side.
He's more aligned with the other side. And that's why they sent the FBI. They wanted information.
Okay, so he's aligned with the Zionists.
More so.
That's what you think.
More so.
Okay. All right, that's interesting. And so, but here, you're here in the sense, because in a sense, if you're in the Army, you got out of the Army because you completed a mission, is that correct?
I was involved in several missions with the
All right.
US Army.
But in other words, you're here under the auspices of speaking kind of as a person who is working for the Fourth Reich.
That's correct.
Okay. And the Zionist faction is telling you to tone it down.
Yeah, because there's been a recent peace treaty between the two factions.
Okay.
As I said, the Fourth Reich is based more on the West Coast in America. The other faction's based more on the East Coast. I've been spending time on both sides of the country.
Uh-huh.
And there's been a recent peace treaty between the
what
two.
have they made peace for?
They just feel like the agenda, the New World Order agenda, can be accelerated more quickly if they're working together.
I see.
And that's the whole, if you know, you probably, what is that agenda? It's the usual things that people talk about, like depopulation, things like that.
Okay. So you're saying that they've made a peace between themselves. My understanding is that the Bush cabal is definitely the ones running the Fourth Reich.
They're heavily involved. I mean, that's why I've been involved with that faction for years. I don't want to speak for Max too much, but I think that's well, I know that's the reason why we've both ended up in Texas.
Okay, so Max, you ended up in Texas as well?
Yep, I'm in Dallas and Michael's in San Antonio. And the connections between him and I run back from, so we were born within 6 days of each other at the end of '76. And it seems like throughout the last 36 years we keep ending up in spots around the world at the same time, exactly the same time. And I think, especially the Bush's, father George Bush's connection to the IBIS project ties in with the Fourth Reich and the Nazi element that's going on now. And there's like kind of a closure, or there's kind of like finality coming to it. It's kind of, everything is coming to a point, and that's why we're both in Texas now.
Meaning you and Michael?
Mm. Yeah, I'm in San Antonio, sort of South Texas. I was based at Fort Sam with the Army, that's why I'm in Texas.
Okay, but in terms of what's coming down, so what is it you think is coming down in the next year?
Well, I don't like to make predictions and say what might happen. But
Okay,
that,
but not a prediction so much as an informed, an informed estimate of, you said you were here because you need to work for them, you need to sort of toe the line because you're going to be working for them for the next year. Do you have any idea what working for them for the next year entails, for example?
I'm kind of not. I signed a 6-year contract with the US Army and I served a year with them, or just under a year. And then I was released because I'm supposed to apply for another position in that area. But I'm not really at liberty to discuss what my next position will be at this present time.
Okay. Are you working as a soldier?
Essentially, I'm working as an assassin. Before I enlisted into the army, I was on a military program called the Future Soldier Program, and that's through a recruitment station in Grand Rapids, Michigan. And I was contacted by a government agent from a corporation called Keypoint, and they also used to be known as Kroll. That's spelled K-R-O-L-L.
Right.
And they're, I mean, if people do the research, they're basically known as an assassination squad.
Okay, well, who might you be assassinating?
This agent contacted my wife from Denver and said, I'd like to meet Mr. Casbolt at the local police station in Grand Rapids. And my recruiter spoke, my army recruiter was a sergeant first class. He spoke to the agent and said, Mr. Casbolt, I'm speaking for Mr. Casbolt because I'm his recruiter. He's not prepared to meet you at the police station. You need to come to the recruitment station to talk to him. So I met him at the recruitment station, and he said that he was here to do my security clearances before I enlisted for the army. And during the time where we were running the security checks and I was answering his questions, providing his details, he triggered me into Alta, and I travelled to the local police station with him. And I was given a police uniform there and put on a private jet from the airport. I ended up in New York, and this was in 2012, the beginning, around February of 2012. And I ended up carrying out an assassination at an apartment on the Upper West Side of New York. And there was one in London too. And at this time, people can check it out, certain high-ranking members of the Rothschild family turned up dead.
Okay, but in a certain sense, it almost seems like it's counterintuitive. If you were born in Britain and you were initially under, it would seem, the Rothschilds' kind of control. So how is it you got traded over to the U.S., other than the fact that you're connected with a woman here?
She comes from the Rothschild family, and when the FBI came to my house, it was actually my wife's mother's house recently, they wanted to know all about Canada, the program as children in Canada, and who else I knew as an adult from that program. And they were aware that I was adopted, and they wanted to know who my biological family was. And I said, I come from the Rothschild family. So this is an internal war between the Rothschilds. It's a huge family, and it's crossing from England to America and back.
Okay, Max, how do you fit in this scenario, since you're in Texas too? Do you feel that you have a mission to complete?
In that particular one, what you were saying, okay, so the US and the UK are essentially under the same, it's the same cabal, so there's no separation. So when you were saying how could you be there and also be over here, it's
Okay, well,
controlled by the same.
my understanding though is that they've also been at war. That there's been some operations done here in the U.S. that are, let's say, well, they're carried out by the Mossad, and they are actually run under the Rothschilds. In other words, the Mossad is operating as a tool of the Rothschilds. And they are here on U.S. soil appearing to be, to some degree, taunts even, having to do with the banking sector, etc., over the Bush cabal. In other words, that there is still some kind of internal control issue surrounding who's going to run the New World Order, for example.
I completely agree with you. I just think it's more of an internal family struggle rather than a geographical
Sure.
place.
Okay, that's fair enough.
Yeah. So in terms of, so I think that they're playing out end times scenario, end times stuff now, which is, and this, for some reason they're following biblical stuff, and I think that there's some connection to the Bushes and the Four Horsemen, symbolically the Four Horsemen, and they are drawing back to them all the people who have the DNA from that particular family. Bauer Bush is the same family, it's a German family. And they used Father George Bush's DNA in a lot of the children who are connected with this particular project. And I think they're all being drawn back to specific places for energetic reasons and symbolic ritual reasons.
Interesting.
So, yeah.
Okay, but what about you?
Okay, so I'm connected to that, and I'm connected to the Bushes. My middle names are Walker and Herbert, unfortunately. So there's a direct connection in that. Actually, the name Herbert was changed. Carabert is a French Merovingian family, so it goes back to Caesar. Anyway, that stream. So I'm connected to it. I have only over the last probably 9 months allowed myself to or stabilize myself in a way where I can recall a lot of the things that have happened, because I purposely blocked them out. So I don't know in the same way that Michael does what exactly I'm doing. I just know what's happening. I know they're doing tests on me at the moment. They've been doing at night. I've been having. I think that they're shocked that I've been able to recoup and balance myself in such a quick amount of time. And so they're doing like physical tests. Like I said yesterday when I was speaking, there's a lot of transhuman stuff that's going on, and I think that it's connected to the 42 children that were in IBIS, and I think that they are testing out as the core, those 42 as the core new breed for the New World Order.
Okay, Michael, how do you feel about that?
Well, like I say, Max and I have been ending up in the same places all around the world. Mm-hmm. Max was in Canada too when he was a youngster, and we ended up in. We both lived in Brighton together. Isn't that where you were born officially on paper? It's a place in England. It's a seaside town. It's like the kind of sex capital of England there, and we were involved in rituals together. The whole pedophilia thing, because that's the core of the conditioning. And in Brighton, there's a lot of MI6 safe houses there. And I remember Max from one particular safe house, and Dr. Mengele was there in Brighton. This was supposed to be.
Well, Mengele, isn't he dead? I mean,
he's not dead. He's still alive.
He's actually in New York. I think he's in New York.
He lived in Florida. He travels all around America, but he's still alive. He was under the name of Stephen Rabel, R-A-B-E-L.
Really?
Yeah.
You think he looks like a really old guy?
No, he looks like he's a guy in about his. He looks like a guy in his 50s, but he's put on a lot of weight. He's very chubby now.
Interesting. Okay. So, well, let me ask you guys, because in a certain sense, do you rebel against the fact that you might be part of something that's not necessarily in the best interests of humanity?
Okay, so I'd have to be saying that I didn't think that transhumanism or like the alteration of humanity is in the best interest of it. In terms of survival dynamics and what's happening now, I think that we're going through a shift and a changeover. I think there has to be some form of big change in the direction that everything's going, because it's fallen way, way off. I mean, it's fallen to an extremely low vibration, so something has to change. I think that I made a deal that I would do certain things a long time ago. I think I'm fulfilling those things. I'm not doing anything that I feel is morally wrong, but then again, like consciously, I'm not, the double agent and the separation thing that's going on, the altars, don't allow me to remember exactly what's happening. So I don't have the guilt connected to it. I think if I did, and if I knew that I probably wouldn't do it.
Okay. So you don't remember being an assassin, for example?
I remember definitely having to do things that were connected with that when I was younger in terms of training, yes.
Okay, when you were younger, but not recently?
Do I remember doing it recently? No.
Okay. And Michael, you obviously do remember things recently, right?
I mean, things come back to me. I'm like on a kind of time delay with my memories. Things come back to me weeks later or months later, so I don't put the operations in jeopardy when they're presently happening. But I mean, scopolamine is used so much on us all, and the CIA drug. But I've been given so much of it over the years, I've become very resistant to it, and that's kind of their main chemical weapon in the mind control. Because you're very compliant and you don't remember much afterwards. But you're still fully conscious and relaxed when you're on it, so it can help with the, to relax you if you're carrying out a hit.
But within the situation, do you think that you're doing a good thing?
I think it's a question of semantics, whereas what is bad for one person is good for another person.
Well, absolutely, if you're in a power struggle. But what I'm asking you is in terms of humanity, and the best interests of humanity. Now that's a big concept, I granted, but many people would say that the New World Order is definitely not in the best interests of humanity.
Well, I think the honest answer is I support depopulation. I think there's too many people on the planet. I definitely, that's the honest answer there, and I think it's a question of survival. People are saying there seems to be in the truth movement, or the so-called truth movement, that transhumanism, AI, issues like that, the whole singularity movement, like Ray Kurzweil and Dr. Aubrey de Grey talk about, as evil. But I don't see the upgrading of the human condition and life extension. We're possibly talking about, at some point, human beings living for millions of years in one body.
Mm-hmm.
I don't necessarily think that is a bad thing. I think that's a good thing. I think it's a healthy thing. But not everyone can have it. So.
And you think that's okay?
I don't, I'm not one for equal opportunity, equality, and indiscriminate love. I don't think everybody deserves love. I don't think everybody's equal.
Okay.
For me, I think we're just animals and it's survival of the fittest.
Really?
That's my experience.
Okay, and so what about, certainly let's say the United States, let's just take the United States as an entity. You've obviously witnessed, and certainly if you come from Britain, you've witnessed the surveillance society. Do you think that's a good thing?
Yeah, I think as we go into the future, we're going to see more controls. And I think that's going to be necessary for this new transhuman society.
Why?
Because I think a lot of people are going to deny and fight against it. Because I think people have a death urge. People want to die. And I don't want to die. I want to live for as long as I can. I don't want to bank on some idea of God or heaven when I die. I want to stay alive as long as I can in this body. I want to survive.
Okay, so you want to survive at whatever the cost, but you're also working for an organization that is elitist in nature. In other words, they think us versus them being the sheeple or whatever, and that they have the right to determine who lives in the future and who doesn't, and they also have a right to control those people. So you believe in a top-down society?
Yeah, I do. I believe in survival of the fittest, and yeah, definitely a top-down society.
Okay.
Yeah.
Was this something that you learned when you were a child? Did you have parents that wrapped this down to you, or was this in this sort of like NSA? You said you were brought up in the NSA.
I mean,
That's sort of interesting because you're British. So how would you be brought up in the NSA?
because I spent the first 4 years of my life, well, like I say, officially I was born in 1976, but unofficially that's not the correct story, but I'm not going to get into that because it's a whole complicated issue.
Okay.
I spent as a baby, as an infant, from 1976 to 1979, I grew up in that facility in Canada, which was run by the NSA. It was known as the Q552 in Nelson. So that was an NSA facility. On paper it was an NSA facility, but it was run by the Nazis.
Okay.
So we were taught these things, but it came naturally to me. It's a natural way of thinking to me.
Okay. What
Maybe
about
not
you?
be natural to other people, but
Right. What about you, Max?
Do I
Same
believe it in
philosophy?
terms of hierarchy? I think that there'll be a new system of hierarchy. I think it's probably if you're taking it to an animal level. Right now, the vibration of this planet is on an animal level. It didn't used to be, but it is now. While it is on that level, it's working through a hierarchical structure. So it is like the strong survive. In perfection, it wouldn't be that way. But as it is now, you kind of follow that kind of structure. So do I believe in it? I believe whatever. For now, I believe whatever is the way for survival, because there is going to be a culling of everything, and I will look out for the ones that I love.
Okay, and so let me ask you this: you feel you're part of the Bush bloodline? Is that correct?
Yeah, I am. Yeah.
Okay, and are you both? Would you say do you both have, let's say, Nazi past history? Do you believe in the Nazi philosophy?
I have connections to it for definite, and I have memories being indoctrinated by them quite a lot. There's a lot I don't. There's a lot I disagree with. There's a lot I disagree with that. So there's an internal struggle for me because I have a split, and there's two sides. And for me, it's been trying to balance the internal struggle. There's half of me which is that way. I'm not completely of that bloodline. I'm of two bloodlines which are going on. So the struggle inside of me is between the war that's going on between the two bloodlines.
Okay, what's the other bloodline besides the
Well,
Bush?
I'm connected to the Rothschild bloodline too, and the Bush bloodline.
Okay, but both of them are Nazis.
Well, they're different. The Rothschilds are not. I mean, not all Nazis. No.
Okay, but there's a very strong contingent which is, and which funds.
Baron Guy de Rothschild wasn't. Victor Rothschild had changed his allegiance at the beginning of the 1900s. He wasn't. These are very powerful men. There's a spiritual aspect to it as well. And
Absolutely. So they're Satanists, right?
who?
The Rothschilds.
well, with the
In its entirety, I think there's probably some that definitely are, and some that aren't. You go ahead.
Well, in the Rothschild element, there's a big communist faction. Like Victor Rothschild was a big communist, and the ideas of communism and National Socialism have always been at war with each other. Like in the Russian Revolution, which were the Bolsheviks, were communist Jews, and there was a Holocaust there against white people in Russia back in the beginning of the 1900s.
Uh-huh.
So you've got there Bolshevik Jews exterminating white Aryans. So that the ideas that was communism. You know, like I say, that there's a big communist element within the Rothschild family, There's also a National Socialist Nazi element with it. So then in turn you had World War II, where the Nazis and National Socialists turned around and started to exterminate the Jewish communists. So the war has been going back and forth between the two factions since back then. But now there's this kind of shaky peace treaty that's currently operating, which has only been come into effect in the last year or so.
Well, let's say they have a common sort of end game in mind, right?
That's correct.
So it's based on seeing that come to pass, no doubt. How do the Chinese fit in this?
Well, the IBIS program, they're all boys, 42 boys, and there was a lot of travel over to Japan and China in that, and it was they was training with some of the secret societies over there, and that sounds corny, but they trained with the the Yakuza, and there was training with the ninjas over there.
Sure.
And
But what I actually meant by that was it's more about who runs the New World Order.
right, okay.
You know, in other words, do you have an understanding? Have they given you an understanding, either one of you?
In terms of the Chinese are looked down. It goes back to an ET war anyway, off-planet war, and this is connected to a reptilian species. And the Chinese are looked as a lesser in the hierarchy, reptilian, less royal than reptilian species. So they, the Japanese attack when that happened was calculated and was always pre-planned to wipe them out. That royal family is planned to be wiped out. They were given power for a certain amount of time, and I think they're choosing to wipe them out.
Okay, that's the Japanese, not the Chinese.
Same. I mean,
Yeah,
obviously they're
it's the same,
separate, but it's the
yeah.
same in their eyes. They're going to.
They're both lower, the Chinese and
Yeah.
Japanese, in the hierarchy, and they're both subservient to the white Illuminati, the
Okay,
Rothschilds.
and from your points of view, then, you basically feel that the reptilians are running the show.
Well, the two factions and the war that's been going on, they're both reptilian factions. The Jewish Rothschild, well, they're both Rothschild, they're all Rothschilds really, but the Zionist kind of Jewish element on the east coast of America, that is the elite there are shapeshifters between humans that turn into lizard men. Some of the Rothschilds, when they shapeshift, getting into kind of really deep territory now, but they look like small T-Rex men. They actually
I understand.
have a tail, as bizarre as it sounds. But on the other side, the Fourth Reich are they're a different life form. They've evolved down a different. They're still reptilian, but they've evolved down a different path. They're basically cyborg reptilians. They're a type of cyborg reptilian with cloned human flesh growing over the top, so they don't shapeshift. So yeah, they're two reptilians factions.
And so, do you both feel that you have substantial amount of reptilian blood, DNA?
Definitely, yeah.
Okay. And you relate to that, in other words, just because you're reptilian doesn't mean that you have to have power over, does it?
Sorry, power over.
Yeah, in other words, the whole game here on Earth and the whole idea of a new world order controlling others is power over others. So what I'm asking is, as reptilians or being related to that bloodline, you both sort of acknowledge that you are sort of in support of the new world order, you're in support of controlling, the surveillance society, what's basically being rolled out. And if we have a low vibration, it's because of that, by the way. So that should be thrown out here. But I don't actually agree with you that the Earth has a lower vibration. Actually, I think it's the reverse. But for some reason, you've been convinced.
I remember when it fell. I remember it fell about 13,000 years ago. There was a falling that happened, and it shifted from being the frequency was higher. It sounded
Okay,
higher.
well, you're talking about the fall of Atlantis.
Mhm.
Then. So
Yeah.
sure, if you talk from then,
That's it.
okay.
and that's when it fell into a more
Okay,
hierarchical
I thought
structure.
you were talking more recently.
No.
But at this moment, so what I'm saying is basically you're coming from a reptilian faction or clan or whatever you want to call it, bloodline, to a scenario. You're both sympathetic. You're both super soldiers being used by that group, right? And you feel, I guess, maybe even that you're related through DNA, family connections, etc. So philosophically, though, you also believe in power over others
Well,
for the purposes of whatever you want to carry out.
The-
Whether you're ruling a country, moving off planet, terraforming other planets. It's a philosophy.
well, the strong rule the weak. That's the bottom line.
That's what I'm asking. That's
And
your
it's
philosophy.
the strong rule the weak. I don't have a problem with aspects of black magic and Satanism. I don't have any problem at all with it. And that might piss some people off, but you want me to sit here and be as honest as I can. So
Sure.
that's the honest answer.
Absolutely. Well, that's the purpose. Is for people to understand what it is you're part of, what it is you're doing as super soldiers. There's no doubt whatsoever that the super soldiers are in service to an agenda. Okay, some of them may rebel against it. Some of them are not necessarily happy that they've ended up being, basically in that position in this life, but they participate, whether they do so willingly, like you say, for example, Max, you don't have memories, or even you're saying the same thing.
My
Michael.
memory's suppressed too.
Yeah. So what it does is basically, whereas here, if you were to remember, if you were to kill somebody or something, right, some animal, let's say, or even a human, or torture them at this point, if you were to remember, in theory, if you're truly human, you would have remorse, right? You would regret it. You would have feelings about it, right?
I am human. Everybody here is having the human experience. It's just some people have different fractions of DNA. So I don't just have reptilian DNA. I have a mixture
Sure.
of a few different
Absolutely.
others. The higher amount of reptilian DNA would decide on that. Everybody has a core amount, and the higher of that, usually it stems from the reptilian brain, and the traits that come from that are defined in terms of the philosophy of what's going on with that.
But what I meant is that it's, let's say, you say they need to use this drug. What do they call it?
Scopolamine. Scopolamine. Or yeah, it could be pronounced scopolamine.
And so that's part of the process. In other words, they have to persuade you on some level, in spite of the fact that on a certain level you're philosophically aligned with them. So in theory, they shouldn't need a drug. They shouldn't need to wipe a memory, but obviously they do so.
Yeah, but
now,
I mean,
secrecy is one part of it, but the other part is compliance, right?
yeah, but they use that drug because I volunteered for a lot of things, and if I don't remember everybody's name, the locations, the dates, it protects us all.
Okay.
Because, or else I might do something, do an operation, do an assassination, and the week later, someone might piss me off in the group. Then all of a sudden I get a phone call from Kerry Cassidy, and I just spill my guts over the phone to you and start mentioning names, places, so it kind of protects us all.
Okay. So at the moment, even the fact that you're here, that you're coming forward, I mean, in a certain sense, Max is kind of a little more off the hook, right? Because your memory, even as like who you are, what you're part of, is much less.
It's less. In 2008, I had when I turned 30, I had all bleed through for weeks at a time. I had bleed through of many memories. And I was always I think generally people who are led to these subjects and keep pushing towards these subjects have some connection to it. And I'd always been wanting to look up about this stuff. And then when it came 2008, when this came back, I realized and became more sure of what was going on in terms of me. But it's very difficult to, because I don't know enough detail. But I chose, there's a contract, there's a soul contract, and I've chosen to do this. I've chosen to be part of this and do this.
Right.
So, yeah, I have less memories than James, yes.
Yes.
Yeah, Michael.
Okay. But you have knowledge. In other words, James has talked a lot about Marduk, for example. Do you have knowledge of Marduk and those
Yes.
kinds of ceremonies and things?
Yeah. Yes, I have quite a bit of knowledge about the Anunnaki and my connections to that.
How would you define the Anunnaki?
They're a species from Aldebaran, and they directly came here. I mean, a lot of the royal families, a lot of the European royal families have connections to that and them. But there are two factions of that. There's a rebellion part of the faction of the Anunnaki as well. So it's hard to define exactly what's going on because there's so much infighting. But it stems back to two brothers actually from the beginning.
Okay, yes. So that's based on the Sitchin and the Sumerian tablets and the idea of Anu.
From the Sumerian tablets, yeah.
Because
And
the
Lil and Enki.
the Illuminati. One man controls the Illuminati. The eye at the top of the pyramid is one man, so it's everyone else takes orders.
So
It goes
that's
down.
the Black Pope.
I mean, if you want to go back in history, talking about the Anunnaki again and Sitchin, they believe this person, whoever he is walking the earth, is Lucifer, who's also Enki. It's the same person, Lucifer and Enki, but he goes by a lot of different names. You might find him in different cities around the world currently.
Could it possibly be Saint Germain?
I don't know. Like I say, he's known by a lot of names, and that's the leader. He's still alive. But some of the most well-known are Lucifer and Enki. Enki,
Okay,
the brother.
What about the idea of the return of Marduk?
He's one of the family members of the Anunnaki.
Mm-hmm. But the idea
The whole family are here now, ready to go.
But actually, I don't know for a fact that Marduk is here. In other words, he was supposed to be on his way back. Did you hear that?
He spends time off planet, but I have heard he spends time in Africa, Tanzania.
So you've heard he's here.
Yeah, I've heard he's here.
Okay.
I've heard the whole family's here. The old ones that are mentioned, in the Anunnaki, what Sitchin mentions.
Well, so you've heard that Anu is here?
Well,
Not the father.
Anu's the father, I think,
Yeah,
of Enki.
but that's a family member. So
But
you're saying he's here?
Yep, I think they're here. He's here. And I think in Judeo-Christian kind of information and teachings would be Jehovah.
The Garden of
and
Eden, the whole
Lucifer,
Eden story is
the whole-
symbolic
it goes
of
back
that.
to it. But these are flesh and blood people that are
Yeah.
here.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, and you believe that they have a large part, they're large part reptilian.
Yeah, well, some factions are loyal to the father still, Anu, but then other ones are loyal, like the Fourth Reich, are loyal to Lucifer or Enki. And Albert Pike, 33rd degree Mason, quoted that Lucifer is God, not Anu or Jehovah, his father.
Okay. Well, sorry, it's laughable to me, but because the Anunnaki only go up so far in the spiritual hierarchy, in my view, and so there's no way they reach that level. But in a sense, we are all gods, so loosely you could say that.
I'm just talking the biblical God.
Yeah, the one they
the
talk
Jehovah
about in the
things.
Bible.
Yeah.
King
I mean,
James Bible.
I don't believe in
That was-
God and gods,
that
but yeah.
was, programming,
Yeah.
type
Mhm.
of like a propaganda,
Yeah.
if you will.
Yeah.
So that the humans would sort of bow down to them and obey them and
Yeah.
so forth.
I mean, yeah, I don't. They call themselves gods. They're just people or
Yeah.
reptilians, flesh
Right.
and blood.
Beings.
Yeah, they're just people, really.
Beings,
Yeah.
right. Okay, fair enough. So have both of you been to Egypt, for example, in this life?
Not that I consciously remember.
I haven't been to Egypt.
Okay.
Tunisia. I spent time there, and there was reasons why I was there.
Mm-hmm. And have you had any dealings with especially tall beings?
Especially tall beings.
Like Nephilim tall, or
Like 9 feet,
tall reptilians.
reptilian beings, reptilian beings.
Tall-
looking reptilian, like,
Yeah.
not looking human.
No, tall reptilians. I mean, I'm not sure if you're familiar with the Goodwood Hill video footage we talked about on Bases 9 and Miles.
Not.
2009, I was involved in some operations with some super soldiers in England, and it was actually a crash retrieval, but it wasn't a alien ship, it was a Cessna. A Navy admiral was transporting a reptilian in a small Cessna plane to a meeting, and it was shot down, the plane.
I see.
And we were at the crash retrieval, and it was actually filmed by a member of the SAS.
Okay.
It was filmed from long distance on a long distance camera, and the reptilian and the admiral were launched out the cockpit when it crashed, and a group of tall reptilians turn up in a ship and retrieve the body, and you can see them on the video footage.
Okay,
it's
is
a
that
group
on
of
the
4.
internet?
That was on YouTube. Yeah.
I haven't seen
It's
that.
quite a controversial video, but you can see them. They're really tall, like 8 feet tall.
Wow.
There's some super soldiers, normal size, like about 6 foot, and they walk past and they're about 8 feet tall, big heads, and they've got kind of tight fitting jumpsuits on. You can also see little horns if you zoom in. So
So, in terms of, for example, have you, where do you feel that Obama fits in this scenario?
I think he's connected to I think he's a black communist Marxist. I think he's connected to the communist faction.
But what about, actually more, the question was more about in terms of the reptilians and in terms of his bloodline. Do you think that he is basically related to, let's say, Marduk?
He's Egyptian royalty. He's like Nefertiti's child's DNA. He was definitely created.
Okay, but
being. So yes.
You sound like you believe that King Tut was Nefertiti's child, but there's evidence that he wasn't actually her child.
Okay.
But, okay, so you believe, because there is, there is actually reason to believe that certainly there's a relationship between King Tut and Obama in terms of bloodline. So you're.
I think you tying in with what the question that you asked. Yes, because I think the Egyptian pharaohs were directly connected with the Anunnaki.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say yeah, but I don't think that that's the original Obama that we see anymore. It's multi-cloned, and the original one is somewhere else under a different name or underground.
Okay, fair enough. Do you feel that way also, Michael?
I think he's got a lot of clones, from my understanding.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely.
Okay, well, what are the Bushes? I mean, when you say they have clones as well.
I think Bush Jr. has a lot of clones.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that, from my understanding, the higher you work your way up, the less clones you have.
Okay. Do you also? I've heard that the clones don't last very long. Is
Yeah,
that?
that's correct. Some of them just last a year and start breaking down. But again, the more clones you have, the easier you are to control. And it's like if you have a twin brother and the twin brother gets sick, the other twin can start getting stressed out and sick too. So the more clones you have, you can torture the other clones, and it can affect the whole group.
Mm-hmm.
So the last thing you want is loads of clones running around.
Because of the collective mind of it.
Exactly. Yeah. Ibis, the 42 boys in Ibis, they weren't clones per se, they were brothers, biological brothers. So they looked not identical, but similar. It's like Max and I look similar.
Similar traits.
Because we were probably, but I think Max was involved in the Ibis program.
And a lot of the time, when you would get information, it would be also somehow subconsciously downloaded to me, So a lot of the 42 children were connected, also subconsciously connected as well. So they're working as a collective. I mean, they're separate consciousness, but they're working as a collective.
Right. Okay, do you feel that way about super soldiers in general, that maybe they are, they have a sort of a simpatico or a psychic through line?
I think, yeah, I'd say so. But like I say, Max and I been around the same places and the same countries, the same areas, and there's all that. We're always linked up to
Since
each
the
other.
beginning, since from day one,
Yeah.
that's the beginning of it.
Always, but I haven't seen. I've got friends like in the NSA and CIA provide me certain file information, but I haven't seen it on file that Max is involved in IBIS. But I just got memories that he is. The only person that I know for sure is involved in the IBIS is a friend who works for the CIA, works in Oak Ridge National Labs down in Tennessee, similar to Los Alamos Labs. He's, again, he's our age and he looks very similar to us. And he was taken to, he was asked to come to a meeting in Virginia, a CIA meeting, I think it was at Langley. And his friend showed him a picture from the IBIS program for, you know, it was like in the mid-80s. And it showed them in the national park there in British Columbia. And I was there as a boy, young boy. He was there as a young boy. And Berezinski is in the picture with us. And there's about 12 boys, and they all look like brothers. Not identical clones, but they all look like brothers.
Okay.
So I don't know if Max is in that picture, 'cause it's difficult to see, are all young boys. But it's not clones per se, but brothers, biological brothers.
There's some connection with that Bush DNA being in all of them too.
Really?
Yeah.
I think so.
Yes.
Okay.
And I
well,
think
actually, this is an interesting twist, but I was told that actually Obama's his father is a white man, and that he's very high up in our government. I wasn't told who it was, and I was told that his mother is black. So it's the reverse of what is publicly
Right.
out there, and that's the reason that he sort of was chosen, and that it's possible that then, in other words, he's a Bush.
Okay.
Wow. Okay.
Which makes him a
I'm not
Rothschild.
saying that's the one.
It just resonates and it feels
Yeah,
interesting.
it's just kind
Yeah.
Yeah.
for some reason.
Yeah.
But what you're saying, you know, that kind of idea where, you know, he can, of course you can, you know. Let me ask you this: are you aware of planned Earth changes in the near future? Have you been made aware of anything like that?
I've been told that there's planned nuclear strikes on American soil, which is going to change the whole geography.
Okay.
And then people asking me when this will happen, but there's a recent nuclear explosion in Texas in the last couple of months. There was
Right, that in that factory.
in the factory. If you look at it,
That was
it's,
nuclear, you're
well,
saying.
you can see the big mushroom cloud.
Okay.
So people are saying, a couple of people said, well, I don't believe these nuclear strikes are going to happen. But I was told from high-level sources they will.
Yeah.
And then people say, well, when they're going to happen? But they're happening now.
Well, right. I
Yeah.
was told that Syria, in fact, I mean, it's veterans today. Gordon Duff is talking about there's ample evidence that they've used nukes in Syria, for
Yeah.
example. You know anything about that?
I don't know about that.
I'm not too familiar with the whole Syria situation.
Right. But, okay, what about an electromagnetic pulse weapon? Have you heard anything about that?
Not too familiar with that either.
You're not?
No.
Okay. Let me ask you something, because you sent me a bunch of material, and I have to say that it appears that there's maybe an alter that was dealing with me.
Okay.
Because the person I'm talking to right now doesn't appear to be, you seem to have a similar body of knowledge, but you don't appear to be that same person.
So in what way do you mean that, Kerry?
Well, that there was an alter of you that was sort of operating earlier on and taking maybe a primary position, now is taking a secondary position. That you must have alters
Yeah.
as a secret soldier.
Yeah, I
Now,
mean,
I
yeah,
don't know
of
if
course.
You know all your alters, but you know, I'm throwing that out.
They're slowly coming through. I mean, there's a lot of them. But yeah, I mean, you've hit the nail on the head there. The reason why I've been able to remember so much is because I feel people try and deprogram themselves backwards. What I mean by that is you have a fake front altar, which is like the good guy that you present to the world, which is always trying to be moral, I'm really good, I'm really kind. And then you've got the other ones that are more primal, behind more dark.
Right.
So what people do is they try and get rid of the more primal ones and enhance the good guy, kind one. But what I've done, I've reversed it. So I've kind of just got rid of the guy with loads of morals and is always trying to be kind, and I've brought the more primal ones forward. So
Okay.
back when I was talking to you, you're probably dealing with the Mr. Nice Guy now, but I'm just more
Yeah,
I'm
but
just
I'll
more
say
honest these days.
Personality-wise, he was a bit different, at least on paper,
Yeah.
than what I'm getting from you.
Mm.
Part of the reason why I didn't recognize you. You know.
Okay.
Although it's hard to, it's often, I deal with so many people, and often when I meet them in person, sometimes they just don't look like their pictures,
Yeah.
their whole, persona is different. But what I want to ask you about that is that person talked to me or wrote to me and said something that was quite interesting. He was talking about machine sort of mentality or machine consciousness versus an AI, and that they're very different.
Mm.
And he was basically talking about how, in a certain sense, this person that wrote to me, who's a faction of you, in theory, believed that the machine, what could be sort of, that machine consciousness, in a sense, wasn't our enemy, but that the AI definitely was.
Okay.
Now, does that resonate with you or make any sense? Do you have anything
That
to
was
say to it?
that was my understanding back then, but my understanding expands as time goes forward. So I was under the impression back then that all AI is really dangerous, and it all needs to be got rid of. But as you progress, you learn more. And I think there's certain AI that's acceptable and can be controlled, and has been incorporated into the super soldiers. But then at the same time, it can make you cold, and it can you're not dealing with emotions anymore so much, human emotions.
Well, machines aren't dealing with human emotions either, right?
Exactly. So some of the super soldiers and the cyborgs, they think that they're more free now. They purge themselves of feelings, and they feel more liberated.
Mm-hmm.
But again, it's semantics. It's
Yeah.
not good or bad. What's good for one person is bad for another person.
Okay. Well, I think when, I'm not a person who believes everything is relative. So I understand that, rationale, but I don't agree with it. So in other words, you can determine what's good for a person, meaning a human, versus a machine, versus an AI. Now, that's a whole nother, discussion. But so I was just, it's interesting to hear where you're at with this now in terms of your, what I'm dealing with here, which is the person that you are today, as opposed to the person that sent me that information, which was a couple of years ago now.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, Max, do you have any thoughts about machines versus AI?
Separate. I don't know how to separate the two of them. I understand AI. I understand that technology and how it's integrated into human beings, but I don't know the specific differences between machines and AI. That's
Okay.
Michael's thing. Yeah.
All right. So what about your familiarity with underground bases in the United States and in England?
Okay. Yeah. I have connections to CLC1 base, which is the Central London Underground base, and I think that's where the majority of my initial programming went on. And also that's some of my earlier memories of Michael were in this particular base. The connections to Canada too, there's a base there. I mean, I know that I was in Canada. I know my parents were both there just before I was born. There was there's some tie to that Nelson in Canada and in London as well. And there have been memories of the Dulcie base that have come back to me over the last couple of years. Very clear memories of there.
Of
Being
what?
of going wearing a uniform, actually working for it, but not feeling like myself, but not feeling like this person now talking to you.
Mm-hmm.
Being weighed every time I had just clear memories having to be weighed naked before I could go change floors or go through certain doorways. They'd have to weigh me. They were the first ones that came back, and seeing just some nasty stuff. Just seeing some pretty unbelievably brutal stuff, actually. Yeah, cages and things like that.
Okay. What about you, Michael? Underground bases.
Well, from the time in 1976, being an info, I've just been transferred from base to base, underground base, all around the world, and then farmed out to the topside civilian community for 6 months here and there, and then back underground. So it's just been going top and bottom for my...
So you have a pretty wide familiarity with various underground bases, you would say?
Yeah, I mean, San Antonio is a big hub nest of entrances, and
Okay, since you did bring up San Antonio, you're obviously aware of this, both of you have to be aware of the secret space program.
Mm-hmm.
I've been told there's a command and control center, for example, in Phobos. Have you ever heard that?
The moon?
Phobos. It's a moon of Mars.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, I've heard of that. I've heard about that, yes. I don't know details on it, but I mean, I've read that.
It supposedly changed directions out of orbit.
Recently?
I don't know about recently.
Okay, well,
I think that's the whole Houston space program. That's why we're down there too. I mean, there's definitely connections with the space program. I've seen it on file. I remember so much with the space program.
I've been in Houston in the last year as well. I was right by the NASA.
The whole NASA thing.
well, but San
yeah.
Antonio and Houston would be connected by an underground base.
And Dallas as well.
It's all, yeah, it's heavy, the space programs, obviously.
But I had a communication with somebody about that.
Hmm.
So have either one of you gone to Mars, for example?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And would you agree that the surface Mars we see is not the Mars you went to?
It looks like Phoenix, Arizona, some areas of Mars.
Mhm.
It's exactly like it. There's apartments there,
Mhm.
buildings.
Is it really cold, like NASA?
It's almost identical to Phoenix, Arizona. The weather's similar, the mountains
The
there.
sky is blue.
I
So
think
sky's
that's why
blue, yeah.
Sedona it's called that area.
Because
Yeah.
Cydonia.
I
Yeah.
totally agree
Yeah.
with that. Yeah.
I mean, they could even ship people to Mars and tell them they're in Phoenix, Arizona,
Yeah.
and they wouldn't know the difference.
Okay. When you were at Mars, did you first of all did you go there using sort of any kind of corridor? In other words, did you teleport? Do you know the means by which you went?
There was two different from the memories that I had in 2008. There was two different ways. One was when I was much younger, and that was through a door, and that was immediately there. The other way I was more of an adult, and there was a countdown to appearing. Things would come on a screen, and it would say 15 seconds to Mars, 10 seconds to Mars, 5 seconds to Mars, and then it would be there. It was almost like I was contained within something, traveling there, but it would only take 20 to 30 seconds.
Okay. How about you?
I mean, I've been involved in more the advanced space command with the huge big triangle ships, but I've also been involved in standard rocket launchers as an astronaut with just the spacesuits on,
Okay.
as standard rockets.
Cool.
And they're going down from, places like Peru, rocket launches in Peru, going up to the moon and things. So it's on my file that I've been involved in the Clavier space on the moon.
Okay, but what you're talking about would be very old school technology. So when you say a black triangle, are you, for example, are you familiar with the Venture Star?
No, not familiar with that term. No.
Okay.
With that, the launches in Peru, they were doing standard rocket launches, like NASA style, old school, with an astronaut suit on, then blasting off to the Space Command in the outer atmosphere. And then you're going on more advanced ships there to Mars.
Okay.
So it's all done, it's covering it up.
Recently, there was supposedly some kind of a battle between what appeared to be a black triangle, a very large black triangle in South Africa, and a UFO of possibly a cigar shape, but a very large UFO, and I guess the military. There's a base there, somewhere in Cape Town area. Did you hear about that?
Not familiar with that, no.
Okay, there was gunfire. It appears that perhaps people at the base were firing at one of the UFOs. Not sure which one. One of them could have been ours. In other words, one of our space program craft, and one of them may have been an off-planet vehicle. You're aware that there is a war going on, right?
I think the cigar ships are reptilians ships, but the whole war going on is a reptilian war, as you mentioned anyway. There's different extraterrestrial races, of course, but most extraterrestrials now, regarding the Earth situation, have aligned with one of the two factions.
Between the what?
Fourth Reich and the opposite Zionist faction. So it's kind of, the battle lines are being drawn.
But in terms of the ETs, what are you talking about? Two different reptilian factions fighting each other?
Yeah, two different reptilian, but it's almost, well, it's not almost like, the other extraterrestrial races that have been hovering around out there have all aligned with the one or the other. So it's just the battle lines have been drawn now, it's one or the other. It's like it goes back to the old Luciferian wars a long time ago. It's like history repeating itself.
It's the same thing. It's the same thing.
Yeah, it's history repeating itself.
Okay. So what about do you know who Clark McClelland is? You don't know? He worked with the Apollo astronauts. He was the one who came forward and talked about seeing an Anunnaki on the space shuttle, giving orders to our American astronauts. He anyway has a website. I think it's called Stargate Chronicles or something like that. Anyway, he has come forward a number of times over the years, but recently I interviewed him. He talked about Aldebaran, and that there was a ship on the way here from Aldebaran, and Aldebaran has always been considered, in a sense, the home of the Fourth Reich type group. So does any of that ring a bell? In other words, would that make sense? Have you heard about Aldebaran? Have you had dealings with this area of space?
There's
I think there's more than one. There's an Aldebaran system, and there's more than one.
I think Aldebaran's actually a star with planets around it. And well, since I was a young child, I was involved with one particular spacecraft. It was a huge black triangle, and it's an Aldebaran craft. It's very old, but it's known by U.S. Air Force Space Command's Calliope, and that stands for Catalyst Accelerator Long Range Audio Platform Orbital Platform Intelligence Apparatus. So it's a bit of a mouthful, but Calliope, and that, like I said, that's an Aldebaran ship, and it's very old, and it orbits the Earth, and but it has a U.S. Air Force Space Command symbol on the side of it.
Okay.
But it's almost like they sponsor it, but it's not one of their
Sounds
craft.
like though it's got an AI on board.
Yeah, it is. It's kind of a female AI.
Okay. Did either one of you happen to see the Tom Cruise movie Oblivion?
Didn't see it yet, but I had planned to see that. Was there ties in with that movie?
Yeah, could be. I would be
Yeah.
interested to hear your reactions.
I saw it.
You did.
Yeah.
And did you pick up on? I mean, obviously, the whole planet, what is now Earth, is run by an AI.
Yeah.
Off-planet AI.
Yeah. It's like the triangle ship in the atmosphere is AI. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's very indicative of what could happen. And then it creates the army of Tom Cruise clones that invade the Earth.
Okay. What about the notion that, you should go see the movie, Max, but
Yeah, it's good. It's
what
interesting.
happens is there's been a war and the humans have lost, and most of the humans they won, but they lost the Earth, and they left the Earth for the most part. There are small communities of humans that are left behind and sort of hiding in underground bases,
Okay.
that type of thing. But the planet itself is run by an AI. Tom Cruise is like a super soldier type whose job is to fix the drones when they fall apart that are kind of running the planet.
Interesting. Tom Cruise seems to create movies because of his connection to Scientology and L. Ron Hubbard, and Hubbard's
Right.
connections to Crowley, which is connected to Montauk. He seems to be playing out that, and it's most of his movies are encoded.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. Let's see, and I won't keep you for much longer. I mean, thank you for all of
No
this.
problem.
In terms of the near range scenario, do you acknowledge that there is a sort of, that they don't really go by countries so much? That Britain and Australia and Canada and I forget which other countries are part of this pact, but there's a sort of a pact
Yeah.
that makes up a sort of one side. And then there are other sides that involve sort of, China and various countries around that.
Well, I was told basically any nation that's part of NATO has access to these projects. So I don't know if that rings true to either of you two.
Okay, so I guess the question is whether or not you're aware, because in a sense, as super soldiers, you report to somebody. And so you also have to know who you don't report to, who the enemy is, if you will. How do you recognize the enemy in a scenario such as we've got here on Earth, where, in essence, we're approaching what is in essence a one world government,
Yeah.
but there's definitely areas where they're more loyal to, let's say, if you want to call it the Zionist faction.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if that actually is the split you're making, because I do see what you're talking about, but I get a feeling that at times they're working together. So it's really confusing. But what I'm asking is, in essence, is how do you tell who the good guys are, from your point of view?
Okay,
And
well,
what I would consider a good guy is not who you would consider.
True. In essence, the super soldiers are bred to kill, so there's always an enemy.
But how,
There always has to be an enemy. The
How do
enemy.
you tell the
Okay, well, the
difference?
enemy now is they're instigating a race war in America, and that's they're socially engineering it for a race war against blacks and whites, because they're trying to reduce the population. So they're targeting blacks in America as the first group, and it's an extension of what was going on in Africa, with depopulating the blacks in Africa with engineered AIDS and things like that. So they're engineering social situations in America now, and then that group is being currently targeted, the blacks in America, and there's a lot of race issues being brought into the media, like Obama is talking about, let's talk about race. In the media, a lot of things are focusing on race to get people's mindsets geared up for that. And in essence, it's a continuation of social engineering programs from Haight-Ashbury in the 60s in San Francisco. The Manson family, the Charles Manson murders, and he was programmed at China Lake for the social engineering. Charles Manson was talking about Helter Skelter, which was a race war, an apocalyptic race war in America between blacks and whites.
With the Beatles triggering
And
music.
the Beatles triggered that, the Helter Skelter song, and then that was the Manson murders were supposed to trigger that, and that was the Helter Skelter race war was supposed to start in Haight-Ashbury, the hippie colony in San Francisco.
At the moment, that actually sounds sort of passé in
Yeah.
a sense. It doesn't. Of course, I live in LA, and it just doesn't seem realistic at this time, from my point of view, that doesn't
Yeah.
seem like it's going to fly.
But you know, they've often tried to, with the Fourth Reich being based on the West Coast, they've tried to trigger this helter-skelter apocalyptic race war in California. With the LA riots, they tried to do it again, and they're going to keep trying to do it until all hell breaks loose between blacks and whites in America. Because you know, to get back to the question, you said who's the current enemy? Well, the black race is being targeted currently in America. The Afro-Americans.
Okay, but doesn't that seem like sort of an counterintuitive if the president is at least partially black?
But what does he consider himself? He's half black, half white, so is he loyal to the whites or is he loyal to the blacks? I'd say he's loyal to the whites, to the Rothschild.
And also, how easy would it be to trigger a race war if it was set up that a clone version of him was shot by a white supremacist? Then that would immediately trigger an uprising. And
that would be a perfect scenario.
Right.
They're going to keep socially, the Fourth Reich essentially is going to keep socially engineering these situations, you know, like the helter-skelter, the Manson in the 60s, the LA riots. Things will keep happening because they want to reduce the population, so they need to start with target groups.
Okay, and what about the notion that they're going to do it with things like earth changes and with causing, you know, with the chemtrails, and basically they're killing people in essence with the radiation, chemtrails, and disease. There's a lot of thought that they maybe want to spread disease. And then even I've heard that there will be some bombings in prime cities here in the U.S. Have you heard any of that?
Well, I mean, that stuff's obviously going on every month now, the terrorist acts. And it's all orchestrated.
Well, actually, what I meant by that was something a lot bigger than what happened in Boston.
Well, back in Africa, I was friends with some SAS guys who were Rhodesian infantry people before they were involved with the SAS. They talked about bioengineered race weapons in Africa, put in the wells, which would only kill the blacks and wouldn't affect the whites. So there'll be, you know, that sort of things, you know, the chemtrails, bioengineered race weapons.
Okay, well, let me throw something a bit strange out at you. I recently heard that there was that we gave away Africa to a group of an incoming race of beings. Have you heard about that?
I've heard different things to do with Africa and the direction of Africa in the future. I've heard there's social engineering programs where they're trying to encourage African Americans to go back to Africa and give them property and housing back there. And there's one really big one. It was even in the mainstream media. I forget what it was called now. But you know, there's this big movement to get the blacks back to Africa, and I don't know if they're.
I've never heard of that.
Yeah, I mean, I forget the name of this thing now. You know, they were going to give them property and tax rebates and things like that, because there was even, you know, the Muslim movement, even the blacks themselves in their own community. There's a big movement to say we don't really belong in America. We should go back to our homeland. And a lot of Africans who I talk to say that themselves. They say, I've never felt welcome here. I'd love to go back to Africa. I'd love to go back to my roots. There's definitely movements to kind of trigger that. So I'm not sure. I mean, I've heard they're going to try and get them back there and nuke Africa. I've heard they're going to try and get them back there and then sell them to incoming extraterrestrial races. So it could be connected to what you mentioned.
Okay, so, but in your positions, like it's sort of as super soldiers, for lack of a better terminology, do you know, they don't let you in on the big picture, you know, they don't sit around and have discussions with you, I assume, right?
Yeah, they do.
They do?
Yeah.
Okay, so they let you in on some of the plans, that kind of thing?
Yeah.
Okay, and what about you?
That for sure. From the beginning, from when I was a child, they explained how it was going to happen.
They do.
I think that was some input from my consciousness and how it was going to happen too.
Okay. Okay. I could be asking you questions all night, but just to wrap this up, and I want to thank both of you for taking the time. When you look at America, you have been told there is going to be a scenario where there's a financial meltdown, and then sort of riots in the streets, and then an implication of what do they call that, martial law, and a scenario. Have you seen it? Been told about a scenario that works in that direction?
I go.
I've just been told the current scenario is this whole race war thing. That's the current thing.
Really?
Well, I don't know whether they'll change it to something else, but that's the plan at the moment.
From what I know, that what Michael's saying is right, but that would also lead to when the race war happens, it will lead to some form of martial law, and that's what they're essentially wanting to do.